Growing up in Japan can be a difficult task for a child, as the culture generally does not express affection and love in the same way we are used to in the West. It is a country with many abusive family problems, a demanding school system, and a society where work is often considered more important than family, creating space for emotional trauma in children. Many times, parents are absent, affection is lacking, and attention is not common. In Japan, it is not usual for parents to tell their children they love them or to hug them, especially as they grow older. This is part of the culture, and it is accepted that things work this way. It is important to make it clear that not only these cultural factors cause young people to run away from home, but also a sequence of emotional and physical abuse, high parental expectations, and other diverse family problems. Since the 1990s, more than 100,000 disappearances of Japanese citizens have been recorded across the country, and a large portion of them are young people and teenagers. Some research in recent years has found that more than half of these missing persons are young people who flee to other cities, often trying to escape their families. A 15-year-old girl reports that she has been living on the streets since she was 10 years old, and that the last time she saw her parents was in a hospital. After running away from home, she fell ill and was hospitalized several times. Authorities contacted her parents to come to the hospital to take care of her. According to her, her parents pretended to be concerned in front of the doctors and nurses to maintain their image, but after signing some papers, they simply left and never returned. She says she does not regret running away from home because the abuse she suffered within her family was far worse than the difficulties she faces on the streets. By choosing to live on the streets, these young people face a harsh life, especially when it comes to teenage girls. Many of these girls end up having sexual relations at an early age and accept staying with strangers in exchange for food and shelter, whether for a night or a few days. The lack of resources is the main reason that drives these young people to resort to illegal activities, such as prostitution in the case of girls, and committing crimes in the case of boys, like forming gangs and engaging in smuggling and other criminal activities. Currently, most of these young people gather in groups in the open areas of Kabukicho, which has led them to be known as the Toyoko kids. Essentially, they are people who don't belong anywhere and meet in a specific area called Toyoko. It is very common to find videos online showing these youths drunk, abandoned in the streets, sometimes even passed out, with nowhere to go. Homeless youth are a fairly common sight when walking through the streets of Japan, and it is not unusual to see many young girls standing in specific spots on darker streets, waiting to be approached by men. Although this type of business can be lucrative for many, not all of them are there by choice. The situations can vary greatly, from young people selling themselves to pay for their university studies, to girls brought from poorer Asian countries to work in this kind of market. There are also youths who have run away from home and need money. As we mentioned earlier, among many other cases we will not delve into here, as it is not the main focus of the video. However, one of these cases we will talk about now is that of lonely young women. Although you might wonder how a woman could get involved in this type of service out of need and loneliness, unfortunately, this sometimes happens. To understand this complex topic before judging these girls, it's important to show you how it starts and how it ends. In Japan, many young women, and even older women, feel lonely and emotionally unfulfilled. Not all, of course, but a large percentage do. To fill this void, many girls turn to dating and chat apps, which make them feel good by meeting new men. There is nothing wrong with that. However, in the midst of all this, many fall into a trap with no way out. In a casual message, a handsome and charming Japanese man says he would like to meet her in person. Convinced by his photo and a good conversation, many girls agree. At the first meeting, he appears very well dressed, kind, attentive, and extremely skilled at seduction, making the girl fall completely in love with him. After a few dates, he tells her he would like to make their relationship official, but that he cannot do so until he succeeds in his career. Then, he reveals that he works as a host in a nightclub and that he needs her help to become famous by spending money on drinks and his company at the club. At this point, you might wonder, won't she realize it's a scam and walk away? They usually don't realize it. Many girls accept this scheme because by then, they have already fallen deeply for the charms of the Japanese Don Juan. When she first goes to the nightclub, she spends money on drinks and his company. However, as the days go by, the prices become increasingly higher, to the point where she no longer has enough money to even pay for her own time with him. At this point, she falls into the cycle of manipulation, and a simple way to get money is suggested to her. Go to a certain place where many other young girls are standing around, and just wait there. Customers will naturally come to her. You might think I made up this whole story and that it's fake, but I present the real case of Watanabe, who was called to testify before the Japanese court. She not only entertained clients and used the same scam, but also targeted lonely men, making them believe she was their beloved girlfriend. After extracting as much money as possible from them, she would simply disappear. And what did she do with all that money? Yes, she spent it all on a host to promote the supposed boy she was in love with. She deceived her clients, and he deceived her, getting even more money for himself. Other women were also later called to testify, because apparently this fraudulent scheme was taught through an online course that Guanab herself sold on social media, teaching other girls how to earn money the same way. The girl was an expert in digital marketing. Only after these events did we begin to understand why some of these girls ended up on the streets selling these types of services. Besides the young girls who fall into the trap of the Japanese Don Juan through dating apps, many lonely women also frequent host clubs to seek a little attention from Japanese hosts, young men with strange, spiky hairstyles, looking like anime characters. When they run out of money, they are often willing to do anything to stay close to these guys. Honestly, these men must either be very good with words or with something else to be able to deceive so many women like that. The situation is truly complicated, or perhaps these women are simply in a difficult situation. In the case of Guanab May, it was discovered that she was actually married to a Vietnamese man. Without a doubt, this is one of the strangest cases you'll ever hear about in Japan. Despite being married, this girl deceived her clients and spent nights, and a lot of money, with a Don Juan-type host with hair like Goku's. Lost in time and history. Besides the cases of homeless youth and women in need, there is still another group, ordinary people who have simply decided to give up on society, isolating themselves from everything and everyone because they have been cast aside by Japan. Part of these individuals are known as the lost generation, mostly older people who have failed to achieve success in life, no job, no relationships, no children, which has led them to be recognized as the generation lost in time and history. This is the result of a very deficient system implemented back in the 1980s, when Japan became a global reference as the new superpower that would dominate the world and even surpass the United States. Several famous movies portray this reality, like Die Hard and Blade Runner, showing the strength and power of Japanese corporations during that period. In fact, Japan's economic system at the time stood out for being different from the Western model and for achieving 3 consecutive decades of growth. But in reality, it was all a facade, a scheme known as keiretsu, where large corporations formed alliances by buying shares from one another and obtaining massive loans from the government through the Bank of Japan. Before you jump into the comments throwing stones and saying, "Oh my God, this was Japan's best period, the golden era, and all that," let me be clear, this is just my opinion. Now I open the space for you to share yours as well. Leave a comment below telling me what you think about Japan's economic system. To avoid going too far off topic, I'll summarize. These corporations had a system called Shushoku Katsudol, which basically opened the doors to employment only once a year, hiring fresh graduates from the country's universities. When that system collapsed, many corporations shut down for nearly a decade, leaving these newly graduated students without job opportunities. But it wasn't simply a matter of finding another job and solving the problem. It wasn't that easy. Within Japanese companies, there existed, and still exist, systems like an inensei, shokuin, chosa, which prepare employees to rise within the same company, effectively closing the doors to outsiders not already in the system. This meant that the so-called lost generation graduated in vain, as companies of that era chose to retain only their existing employees. Many of these young people gave up on job hunting altogether and isolated themselves at their parents' homes, also abandoning the idea of achieving success in life. Even today, it's possible to find people from that era, now middle-aged, who never started families or had children. In short, this is the root of Japan's so-called lost generation. Besides them, there's a newer group of young people known as the hikikomori, individuals who have chosen to isolate themselves from real life and take refuge in online games, the internet, anime, and manga. These youths have become disillusioned with adult life and cannot endure the highly competitive system and the constant demands to succeed in Japan and secure a good job. They simply carry too heavy a burden. There are even several Japanese documentaries that explore this topic and dive deep into its origins. Without a doubt, they add to the list of groups who feel lonely in Japan. There are many complicated situations that this country faces, involving culture, the work system, finances, greed, and many other factors that must be considered. Japan is an amazing country, but honestly, I don't know what will happen if young people continue to experience this kind of pressure year after year, every day, at every moment. Of course, thank you so much for watching until the end, and I'll see you in the next video.